Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the episode of Gills in the Blood TV. If you have been on Instagram at any point today, you will know that there is a slight change to the recording schedule this week. Instead of having an opposition fan on to just solely preview Crawley Town at the weekend, I'm pleased to say making his first appearance on the channel is Gills supporter Luke Teachen. You may have heard his voice on German Gills. He does Luke's 11 now on a weekly basis, predicting the 11, which is getting tougher and tougher by the week, which is great. And he also is one of the voices on the ME7 Spaces on Twitter. So Luke is a familiar voice and a familiar face around the Gillingham supporter base. Luke, appreciate you coming on. First appearance. Thank you very much.
Not a problem at all. Glad to be here.
Good. Right, we'll crack straight on. We've said we're going to change it up this week. So we will look at the Crawley game, but it'll be obviously from a Gills perspective more heavily. But yesterday was transfer deadline day. It slammed shut at 11 o'clock. And despite Gillingham not tweeting for about 6.5 hours from 6 o'clock until the Tunbridge game in the Kent Cup, there was business on the final day. It was Aidan O'Brien and Tristan Abrahams who came through the door to add some much needed depth to the forward department. So what we're going to do before we get on to the Crawley preview is have a look at the transfer window as a whole. And Luke, what a transfer window it's been.
Well, if you'd have said 2 months ago, with staring down the barrel of defeat every week, looking into we was all thinking we're going to be in the scrap for go down to National League, that we would then sign 10 players at the end of January. I think I'd have eaten a Gillingham shirt in front of everyone in the Rainaments. Looking back on it, I think it's got to be a 10 out of 10 window. We've signed 10. We've signed 10 players, 6 of which I'd say are first team players, 4 around the ranks, and brilliant window.
Yeah, I think Gabe Sutton actually put out that very tweet today and said, how would you rate your club's transfer window? I said 9.5. I said a left back would have made it 10, but I think the target was James Furlong. That was the name that seemed to be doing the rounds throughout the whole of January. It looks like he's gone up north to play for Motherwell. So you can sort of see the commentary now, can't you? Another great ball in by Furlong. Unfortunately, Mika Mandron's headed it over the bar. I jest, Gillingham fans, anyone who's a fan of Mika, so was I. I think he's a very nice bloke and he's a decent footballer. But for one reason or another, it didn't work. But we moved because he has left to go to Scotland. Yeah, you said six that can probably walk straight into the first 11. I've written down the same thing. I said about 50-60%. I think, Luke, a straight into that starting 11 and making it a lot stronger than what it was on January the 1st. You then have the likes of O'Brien and Abrahams that came on very late on deadline day that will pad out the bench and give us better options from that bench. I think, and then it's great that we've got the likes of maybe sort of Ethan Coleman and Jaden Clark that are going to be sort of the longer term projects. But let's go right back to the start of January. I'll try and remember, and we can do it in date order. The first one was Tom Nichols, rumoured to be around 60,000 from Crawley. Too short, too beep. Not good enough. Can't play with Dom Telford. So we snapped him up. 3 goals, 2 assists in 3 appearances. He started his life at Gills all right, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't think you could ask for much more, considering what we did have. Like I say, no disrespect to Mika and Scott Cashett, Lewis Walker, but they had 20 odd games to prove themselves, and it's taken Tom Nichols 3 games to get 3 goals and 2 assists. And I think he needs no more introduction. Really, he's it's phenomenal. You could tell from the Hartlepool game when Cashett came on for Nichols, the golf in class between him and Cashett, and I think 3 goals, 2 assists, all thanks to Alex McDonald.
Yeah, all 3 of his goals have come from set plays from Macca, and I think it's just great to see Macca playing with a smile on his face and doing what he does best, and that's influencing football matches at the top end of the pitch.
No, definitely, and I think you can see that he's you know what you're getting with Macca as well. But them deliveries. It's, whatever happens and what went wrong, as I said, we would expect that type of movement from Altals Mika, 6'3", 6'4", but for someone who's got to be 5'9", his movement is second to none. I think he'll be our little fox in the box moving forward.
Certainly looks that way, and the 2 assists is obviously the bonus at the moment as well, creating goals. So he set up the first, didn't he, at Swindon last weekend. Second signing was, I think, Timothy Dieng. And the words release clause activated is not something that we've been used to as a supporter base for, well, a long time. So it was nice to see them words in the article when it was announced that Timmy had come and joined from League One Exeter. And it's not just a League One side that were, you know, struggling at the bottom. They're halfway up. They're doing very well in the third tier. So decent money again. Obviously, we take it all with a pinch of salt, what we read on social media. We don't know how true it is. We don't all know the ins and outs of every single deal. Another one that's come in is another one of those 60% that goes straight into the team and been very, very good over the first 3 games that he's played.
I think he was, obviously we all thought that a striker was going to be the marquee signing, but I think what Dieng does is he is the marquee signing. Obviously, he costs the most money, but
it seems to be the case.
Yeah, so he you would say he's the marquee signing in this window. He's a box-to-box midfielder. He seemed to have glued the glue, shall I say, between Jeffries and Williams, and it's given that. Although Williams is experienced, another experienced head that was League Two Player of the Season, Exeter Player of the Year. He's been there, done it, and I think he'll be an influential character for a promotion push next season. So it was good that we've got him for the here and now, but I think for the future, if we stay up, fingers crossed, which we hope we will, he will be one of the players that will be, you know, really, really push on.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on about Dieng being sort of box to box. And I think Jeffries falls into that category as well. And I know in the modern game we almost have to label people and pigeonhole them. They have to be sitters or centre attacking midfielders and this and that. But it's great to have 2 that have just got the legs and the wherewithal to just get up and down and be a threat in one box and then help defend their other box as well. And excuse me, I think I mentioned on the match day live for the Swindon game, it made Sean Williams look 10 years younger. He looked like a 25-year-old running around. He was bringing the ball over the halfway line at the county ground and driving forward into space. And that's not just Dieng, I get that. It was probably Ollie Hawkins having a big impact on that type of thing as well. But Will Wright commented, didn't he, in the press conference before Swindon and said that these good players have come in and their standards have been great straight away and everyone else has sort of done the same and gone along on this crest of a wave type thing, and long may that continue. Glenn Morris, I'm not going to say too much about. We know the qualities of Glenn the Cat, and he'd been with us for the first half of the season. He was with us a few years ago, but another massive save at the weekend, which essentially prevented us from losing a game from 3-1 up. And at 39, still not showing any signs of slowing down whatsoever.
I think, what's he saved? 2 penalties as well this season at home?
Could have been 3. Yeah, Barrow and
could have been 3.
Mansfield, I think.
Could have been 3 on Saturday. I honestly thought he'd saved it, but and I think the good thing with Morris is that Jake Turner is a good goalkeeper, in my opinion. He's got a few things to work on. Mainly, I think for me, is kicking. Glenn's, but I think he is a massive influence to Jake. So I'd like to see Jake here for a good few years. And I think he's a good mentor for a lot of people in the club because he's been there, done it. Like I say, 39 years old. And he still seems to be performing like a spring chicken.
He does, and it'd be interesting to see once he eventually does hang them gloves up now with this structure that we're building within the football club. Obviously, we've got Darren Ibrahim, who's the goalkeeping coach and doing very well at that. Be interesting to see if Glenn hangs around and goes and sort of coaches in the academy or a lower level, in terms of age group. That'd be great, and it's another experienced head who's been around the block in terms of the Football League. The next 2 was kind of a double deal, but they were announced a couple of days apart, and that was Ollie Hawkins and George Lapsley, who both arrived from playoff chasing Mansfield. I believe it was around 6 figures for the pair, with potential to increase a little bit. Again, we don't know the ins and outs, but we've not seen loads of Lapsley. We've seen 2 cameos off the bench at what's it called, the Job Serve Community Stadium when we beat Colchester a couple of Saturdays ago, and then again at the county ground last week. Certainly looks the part. Certainly looks like everything you want in a central midfielder that likes to play in the final third and in between the lines and create space and pick up dangerous ball in dangerous areas. But Ollie Hawkins, and we've already mentioned one target man that we had for the first half of the season, and again, it's no disrespect to Mika and the other strikers, but Ollie Hawkins has come in. I described him as absolutely unplayable for the first half on Saturday. What have you made of Ollie so far? He's been a bit unlucky for me in the sense that he's not actually got a goal or an assist, but he's indirectly been involved in a lot of good stuff.
I think his all-round play is fantastic. I think there's a couple of opportunities in the first half at Swindon. The way he the ball just sticks to him, even though when it's a long ball and he's putting it down on his chest, it comes down nicely to his feet. If he had a bit of pace about him, he'd be completely unplayable. But
I think if he had a bit of pace about him, he wouldn't be bad for Gills.
no, I bet you're right. I bet you're right. But yeah, his overall play is brilliant, and I think he adds that dynamic to a team that, for set pieces, especially defending set pieces, is that we don't seem like we're going to concede because you've got a 6'6", target man both boxes. But yeah, his overall play, I think, has been outstanding. But I would like to see. He looks like he needs a little bit of a rest. I think the last 15 minutes in the last two games against Swindon and Colchester, he's looked a bit leggy. But hopefully, we'll move on to the signings in a minute. That they will be able to help out because obviously they're big boys as well. So we can, But yeah, I think he's been outstanding. And the way he plays with Nichols, you would think they've been playing together for years. The chemistry that they're building, I think, is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and it's really, really positive in terms of moving forward, because if they've been that good after essentially 3 or 4 weeks together, just think what they could be doing, next season when hopefully, like we've said, we are still in League Two and probably will be one of the more fancied sides next season, I can imagine, based on the fact that we do have this owner who's got a whole lot of dollar now.
Yeah, exactly.
Lapsley, like we said, like to see more of, wouldn't we? But it's great that we can phase him in and we're not having to just drop him straight into a team because we are playing all right at the moment.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about it more in the preview for the Crawley game. My thoughts on what Lapsley.
Yeah, sure.
But you can tell that just the way it's been a bit unlucky, because the job he's been asked to do in the last two games is replace Nichols and chase down that ball, put the pressure when he's come on in winning positions. So we can't really judge him on what he's done, but the way at Swindon, he was itching to come on from as soon as the second half come up. He was up and down that sideline in Harris's eye trying to get on, but you can see the quality that he's got, the pace. That ball from Hawkins right at the end against Swindon, where he was about half a yard.
If he just managed to bring it under his spell, he was in, wasn't he? Yeah. Even the Colchester game, I think, as well, Luke, the week before, there was that one where his first touch, I think, and I just thought he was going to shift it on his left foot and bury one in the bottom corner, which would have been unreal. And I said to Fish when we did the Monday review for that game, that was the only thing missing from that afternoon, was that there wasn't a goal in front of the Gillingham supporters. But we're not going to sit here and complain too much after 7 points from 9 and 7 goals after 7 goals in 23 previous matches. So what's that? We've done 5 of them now, haven't we? We've covered Nichols, Morris, Dieng, the 2 lads from Mansfield. So then I think it was the day of the question and answer session. 2 more got announced. And for me, these are the 2 what I'd call the project players at the moment.
Yeah.
That's Jaden Clark, who's come in on a free transfer because he wasn't playing with a contract at Dulwich Hamlet. I think it was like 4, 5, 6 goals and a couple of assists in 20 odd games from midfield for Dulwich. Fingers crossed it turns out better than the other player that we signed from Dulwich in the summer, and that was Jordan Green, who we did have high hopes for, but that's swiftly gone wrong. We've not seen anything of Clark, so it's difficult to gauge just how good he could be. But a real positive was Tuesday night. He scored in the Kent Cup game. Unfortunately, we went out on penalties, but it seems by all the reports and the tweets that we've seen on social media that Clark took his goal pretty well. And it'd be nice if we are safe with 5 games to go, that then you can probably get someone like Jaden Clark on the bench and you might be able to get him 20 minutes, half an hour here. But just how excited are you to see how he progresses and so almost just find out essentially what his best role is, because it seems he's quite versatile.
I think it's one of these ones is that and Brad's spoken about it, Hess, Kenny and Neil in particular, the catchment area that we've got, we should be attracting the players of this that have got this ability that are in non-league. I believe he got Player of the Month in December for in the league as well for Dulwich Hamlet. He's obviously got something about him, but we haven't been able to find these diamonds in the rough, should I say, because we haven't had the structure or the facility to be able to accommodate it. I think him and Coleman have been signed for the purposes of next year. Hopefully, we have an under-23 side or a reserve side. Obviously, the loan signing yesterday as well. If we've got him on a obligation to buy, you would think that would be the case as well. But it gives us the opportunity that I'd be quite excited to go. I can't remember, is it a Thursday or Friday night, the under-23s or a reserves play? I'd be quite excited to go down Priestfield and see what talent is shifting about. So, yeah, by all accounts, he's going to be thereabouts over the next coming seasons, which was for us. We love a homegrown talent, so it'll
Yeah,
be
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it helps with in
it,
terms of the ruling and getting 7 on the bench, doesn't it? Because you have to have one on there, otherwise you can only name 6 substitutes, which makes it a little bit tricky. Coleman, I think, is a little bit more further along in terms of his education. He's played a handful of games for Leyton Orient, and also I think Bromley fans were quite sort of disappointed that he'd been recalled from his loan spell there. He'd had a good first half to the season. Another one who's got versatility, can play centre midfield and can play centre back as well, which is great. As much as we've got more money now with Brad Gallinson coming in and taking over at the end of December, we're still going to be running with not a huge squad. I think it's probably overinflated in terms of numbers at the moment, and we'll get onto that once we've discussed the incomings. So Coleman again, I'd imagine if we see an injury to someone like Maxima or Will Wright, then he might come onto the bench sooner rather than later just to accommodate a couple of positions. For me, and I've spoken about this individual as well, and I don't know what your thoughts are, Luke, I think it's probably another sign that we might be seeing the end of Stuart O'Keefe's time as a regular for Gillingham, because it seems that you can't play Stuart O'Keefe and Sean Williams together. I think that's the general consensus. And I think Harris is, I'm not saying he's not a fan of Stuart O'Keefe. I think he's got a lot of time for Stuart O'Keefe, and I still have personally as well. And I think the fan base has. But it seems that he favours Sean Williams over Stuart O'Keefe, which then means, and he come out and confirmed, didn't he, Harris, that Stuart O'Keefe didn't travel last weekend purely for selection reasons. Do you see someone like Stuart still being here next season, or do you think he'll want to move on and play regular football somewhere else?
I think you can read more into that. Like, if you're playing Swindon, who obviously the rivalry that we have, and you're club captain, but you still haven't travelled, I would have, if I was club captain, I would have still travelled on a bus just to be in the dressing room as such.
Yeah, so potentially. You don't know what's happened, do we?
We don't know what's happened. I think there's a massive gulf from his performances towards the end of last season to how he's performed this season. I don't think we'll see him play again, if I'm being honest. I don't think we'll see him in a Gills shirt again this season.
No, I think it's going to be tough for Stuart, isn't it? Because the form of Sean Williams certainly seems to take over, and the new arrivals, and we've already mentioned how good Timmy Dieng and Dom Jeffries have been, and Alex McDonald as well. And then you throw into like a youngster like Coleman and there's someone with the ability of Lapsley who's got 6 years on Stuart as well. It does look like it's going to make it tough. I suppose the only way you could see him coming back in is if Sean Williams gets injured and then he comes back in as captain and plays that role. But only time will tell. Conor Masterson was signing number 8, I believe. That was announced the Friday or the Thursday before the Swindon game. We know all about Conor and his qualities. He was very good in the almost great escape when we nearly survived in League One last season. I think his first game was Oxford, wasn't it? And he didn't get off the bench. So he was probably one of the only players that came out with reputation at least the same as it was before the start of that game, because that was one of the worst afternoons I've ever had to take part in as a Gillingham fan. Watching a ship 7 and 4 penalties at a home game was heartbreaking, disappointing, all them sort of words. He came on, didn't get long against Swindon. I think it's about half an hour. Wasn't at fault for any of the goals. Just gives us flexibility now, though, doesn't he, to be able to play a couple of different systems. We can play a 4-4-2 diamond, a flat 4-4-2. He's comfortable in a pair, but he's equally comfortably, I think, playing from either side in a back 3, which means we can change it up, horses for courses type thing. And I think Conor Masterson's going to prove to be a really good asset for the rest of the season. And again, hopefully, someone that we can then sign permanently in the summer. What's your thoughts on Conor Masterson?
Yeah, I did mention his name at the beginning of the season to see if he was going to potentially come back. Obviously, money restrictions probably didn't allow us to do that. But he was announced that one of the kind of shining lights, you could say, from the Great Escape towards the end of last season, especially the last 10 games. I thought he was outstanding. The good thing about him as well is a centre half that can play ball. He's very good with his feet. I hope we don't revert back to 5 at the back and play with the 3 centre halves, just because I think we've got the players now to play more attacking free flowing football. I feel sorry for Will Wright, because I think he will be the person that suffers in us signing Masterson, and Will has been good over the last few weeks, but I think there's a mistake in him. But yeah, Masterson for me should be starting week in, week out.
Yeah, and he maybe not even a mistake with Roy, but just the fact that he's very new to Football League, isn't he? And he's still only a kid in terms of centre back. You know, I mean, they say centre backs are not into their prime until they're sort of approaching 30, and he's only 24. We're right. I think he was probably in the team at the start of the season because he was basically our only threat from set plays, good delivery into the box. And we know the goals that Elkan Baggett scored essentially all came from Will Wright's delivery. But like you've mentioned, we don't have to have that now because we've got better players in open play that can go and create and cause damage in the final third. So, yeah, I'd imagine if we stick to the same system Saturday, then Will Wright might be in danger because I think if we'd won at Swindon, I think there's a big case to say, right, we stay the same 11 again, and that's totally correct. There's still a case for that as well because we've not lost the football match, but I just think, and we'll get onto it in a little while when we start looking at Crawley, but I'm sure you're the same as well. I think there might be one or two changes this week, especially with it being a home game as well. But before we get to that, the final two, we've already mentioned quickly that came in late on deadline day was Aidan O'Brien, and I think that was probably one of the worst kept secrets on social media throughout the day. More and more journalists were picking up on it and confirming it was happening. Peter O'Rourke's always one that I use as a gauge, and as soon as he announced it, then I was like, right, that's done. Let's get the tweet drafted, ready to announce it once the club's done it officially. We all know what Aidan O'Brien brings. He's a big lump. I'd say he's probably the closest we're going to have as a replacement to Ollie Hawkins to play the target man system. And we know that Neil lives and dies by a target man. Stats are not great over the last couple of seasons. I think there's rumours of a falling out at Shrewsbury with the manager or something's gone on behind the scenes, but we don't know. Again, it's just conjecture. If we can get Aidan O'Brien at his best, I think, and I described it when it was announced that he was coming in, that I think as he's padding out the bench, it's a good option from the bench at the moment. But for me, if he was coming in to start, I'd be a little bit sort of underwhelmed. But there's certainly a good player in there, and he knows Neil Harris, and Neil Harris knows him. So could it just be one that is one of them players that plays really well under a certain manager, and it could end up being a really astute bit of business for the rest of the season at least?
Yeah. Well, I think obviously me and you was on the phone quite a lot yesterday, and we were worried that if Hawkins, or especially Hawkins, if Hawkins got injured, then we can't play the way we've been playing over the last few weeks. And especially if Nichols gets injured, we're going to be in exactly the same situation. No disrespect to Lewis Walker and Scott Cashgit, but these are on a different level to where they're at.
Well, it seems that Lewis Walker might be injured again, unfortunately. I think Lee Clifton tweeted today and said that he was spotted at the Tunbridge Angels game last night with his leg in a brace. So it looks like these recurrence of this problem that he had that goes back to the Dagenham replay. So it looks like we might not see Lewis Walker for a while.
Well, that makes it even more of a better signing then, doesn't it? So if you can arguably say that Aidan O'Brien played his best football under Neil Harris. As you've mentioned, if we can get him anywhere near that, and bearing in mind he's played his best football at Championship and League One level, if we can get him anywhere near that at all, we're going to have a player on our hands. Like we said, we were a bit worried that he's only played 6 games all year. There's an argument that he had a hip injury and then he's had a bit of a falling out, but he is fit. I think this is a bit of a one. Let's wait and see what we get. I think he'll either set the world alight or, I'm hoping for the first. He's going to set the world alight.
Of course, exactly. And we're going to get beyond him. Of course, we are. Like we will all of them.
But he's a great option to have off the bench. And we were both quite happy with it. We was getting a bit excited at being Alfie May, and we of course slowly realised that was never going to happen. I think it'd be a good signing.
Yeah, I think it's good in terms of giving us squad depth, and it gives us a bit of versatility in the final third because he can operate from one side. And then the other one, which was the completely out of the blue signing yesterday evening, because I think when Gills did their little not cryptic tweet about being forward and the curtains that have come in for a lot of discussion over the last 4 or 5 weeks, I thought we all assumed that was going to be Aidan O'Brien was the first announcement, and then suddenly Tristan Abrahams was announced that no one's heard of being linked at all, but there are links there if you look at it carefully enough. I think he was given his debut by Kenny Jackets, and also coming from Eastleigh there's a link to Hesse, who has managed at that football club, so I'm sure he's been able to go and get character references and that type of thing, so you can see why it's happened. Looks like he's quick and powerful. Again, not seen loads. Goal scoring records, not wonderful, but he looks like a type of player that will occupy defenders. And I think he's got something that none of our centre forwards have, and that's pace and power in abundance. It's another way to play.
I think that's the key, and that's what we spoke about after the Swindon game, is that off the bench we haven't really got, apart from Lapsley, we haven't really got any pace. And again, I think it'll give us another outlet that if the game's slightly getting away from us or we need to mix it up a little bit, him and Aidan O'Brien can give us something a bit different. If it's a game where Nichols and Hawkins are playing against a team like, let's say, for Mansfield itself, two massive centre halves, it's going to be the type of game where you might drop Nichols and you give either O'Brien
Mansfield haven't got two massive centre halves now because we bought one and
played
him as a
striker. Or Salford. Let's use them as a good example. But it just gives us that different options to play a different way and stops us getting a little bit bullied, a little bit up the pitch a little bit. He's 6'1", Tammy Abraham, so he's not short. I wish
it was Tammy Abraham. I'd have taken that.
Yes, Tommy Abraham, Tristan Abraham. Sorry.
There's loads of them, to be fair. I think there's about 4 of them that play, isn't there? Tammy would have been nice. I'd have taken that.
Would be nice,
But again, it's another one I think that gives us a decent option from the bench. And like you said, we've got pace with Kashkit, but he's lightweight. We've got that power with Hawkins, but he's not quick. And I think you've already alluded to it. I think everyone alluded to it. When Hawkins came slightly off the boil Saturday against Swindon, we were suddenly easier to play against because the ball kept coming back. And I think that might have played a small part in why we ended up drawing the game and not winning it. And that's no disrespect to Ollie Hawkins. It was nothing on his performance. It's just that we've now got suddenly more options on the bench to be able to come on and influence games in terms of trying to score a goal or trying to protect a lead. One quick note, I just want to ask you, because someone alluded it to me, because I said to Reese on the Monday review that Charlie Austin's movement and thumping header for the equaliser were unreal. Having watched it back, it looks like it's an own goal.
No way.
I slowed it down. Someone replied to me and said, "You've called it a thumping header. Go and have a look." And I slowed it down. And if you look at it, it looks like Austin's glanced in it towards the far corner, and then it smacks Will right on the forehead, and that's why it ends up in the middle of the net.
I was literally, my heart sank when that went in.
It sank more when Hepburn Murphy was running through one-on-one with about 2 minutes to go. I thought, oh no, this is going to make the drive home a lot worse.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got off on a small tangent there. Will Wright won't want the own goal, I'm sure, and Charlie Austin probably wants it, so we'll leave it as is. That's the transfer window done. Brad Gallinson come in and said, lucrative and aggressive transfer window. That was his words, I'm quoting, in one of his first interviews. I think it's fair to say that in terms of that and everything else that he's put his mind to and said he's going to do at the moment, he's absolutely delivered, hasn't he?
Yeah, you can't argue with it at all. That it's very refreshing to see someone come in and especially with, let's be honest, if you look at the political and people that've got a lot of money landscape, they don't normally tell the truth. And Brad's come in and delivered on everything that he said. He's a breath of fresh air within the club. He wants to be transparent with the fans. He communicates with the fans. He gets the community, especially obviously with Crawley, people paying £1 to get a ticket, and be able to take people that taking their kids, take people that their auntie, their uncles, grandparents that wouldn't normally be able to afford it. And you can see with his tweet today about how excited he is just to work with the team that they've been brought in. It's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and the word community gets used a lot, and I think that's brilliant to see as well. There were a few outgoings or returning loanees in the transfer window as well. Not as many as I think any of us envisaged, to be quite honest, but the likes of Elkan Baggott were called by Ipswich. He went to Cheltenham, and we wish him all the best for the second half of the season. Ryan Law was called back by Plymouth. Don't think he's gone anywhere yet at the moment, so one to keep an eye on. Haji Manoga, unfortunately, just never worked out after that red card back in September. He went back to Portsmouth, and I think has gone on loan to Aldershot now in the National League because he can't play for a Football League side again for the rest of the season. Callum Harriott is technically not our player anymore. His contract has run out, and he is recovering from a thigh problem. And we know Mika Mandron went to Motherwell. His contract was torn up. In terms of those, I think they were all fairly sort of expected, aside from Baggott. But did you not expect more to maybe be released or to have been moved on? I'm thinking the likes of maybe Stuart O'Keefe might have gone and played because he's 31. Certainly people like Ollie Lee, Jordan Green. We've got a massive squad all of a sudden, haven't we? From suddenly running with sort of 18, 19, 20 players for the last few years, I think we're near a 30 now, which is
exactly.
not sustainable in the longer term.
No. Obviously, we spoke about it. I thought Ollie Lee and I thought Stuart O'Keefe as well, to be fair. Jordan Green, I thought them three would have had their contracts terminated. Might be a bit unfair on O'Keefe. But yeah, I definitely thought a couple of them would have had contracts terminated. Obviously, we heard that rumor where it was O'Keefe, Cashgit, and Green all got offered to Maidstone, but they couldn't afford the wages. Obviously, they're going.
So I wonder if the Cashgit thing's changed because of the Lewis Walker situation. That might have obviously moved the goalpost somewhat. So it might have given Cashgit a little bit more time. So be it. But obviously,
and I thought that
injuries and that changed the way things happen.
I think if we didn't sign, and if Lewis Walker was fit, I think, but if we didn't have signed the two strikers yesterday, I think Walker probably could have gone out on loan. I think Joe Cabode will now go out on loan. You can still do loans now, can't you?
I'd have thought so, and he needs to go somewhere and just play for 3 months rather than
I think
sort of a
should
month,
just go
4
back
weeks.
to Hastings.
Just take him for the rest of the season. Let him play for the rest of the season, because sitting on our bench is not going to benefit him or us. And if we have to just name 6 substitutes, then we name 6 substitutes.
Yeah, but I think Bailey's got a little knock. If he hasn't, then I'd assume he would go out as well.
And then we've got Josh Chambers still at Worthing, I think, for the rest of the season. And Matty MacArthur was doing a work experience still at Margate, I think. So I don't know how long that's going to last.
So, I thought there'd have been a few more. Obviously, Ollie Lee's probably one of the highest paid players on the books.
Yeah, and obviously we're not sure what's going on with Ollie Lee, and we're not going to try and guess because it's something that's not just football related, I don't think. And the other one is Ben Reeves, who unfortunately I just don't think we'll see again. And I hope we are helping him through his injury, but ACL means we won't see Ben Reeves in a Gillingham shirt again, unfortunately. Right. That's the transfer window done anyway, Luke. And I think we covered it pretty well. Hopefully everyone who is watching is still enjoying listening to us too. We do have another big game Saturday. You've already alluded to it. It is going to be a complete sellout. I've just noticed that Gills have tweeted corporate is all gone as well now, and hospitality. Every seat is taken in the Raynham Inn, the Gordon Road stand, the Medway stand, and the Brian Moore stand. I cannot remember the last time we had Gillingham fans in the open-ended stand. The last game, I think because you see it, I'm thinking like Charlton when Mohamed Sidibe scored. It's got to be 15, 20 years ago, like since we had home supporters in there. I remember standing in there as a youngster when it was still the old concrete one that was subsiding at one end, and we had to get rid of it. And we all joked that we've had the most permanent temporary stand for the best part of 20 years. But it's going to be great Saturday, and I can't wait. Can you? Absolutely full house. It's going to be bouncing. It's
going to be brilliant. And I've been, what we're on now, Wednesday. I've been counting down the days until we get to Saturday. It's going to be one to remember. Obviously, how good we've already had a good attendance at Leicester in the FA Cup. This is going to be, what was that, 8,000 was it, Leicester?
About that, and obviously we're looking at sort of 9.5, 10.
9.5, 10. So it's going to be another extra couple of thousand. I think Crawley have sold out their allocation of 750.
Only just,
took a bit of time, it's going to be fantastic, and I think it will show people that don't come every week what they're missing if we get the script right and win the game. But it's going to be brilliant. And what I think I said to my mate who's a bit young, I went, are we going to meet in a pub or are we meeting in the factory? I went, so I don't think we're going to get in the factory.
I'd imagine you have to queue for a while.
But it's going to be brilliant. Nice to see the streets. And I remember when I was a kid, and my dad and my granddad used to take me, and walking through the roads to get to the ground. There's thousands of people there for it's just going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I can't
bring
wait.
back their memories.
I woke up Monday morning and it was the first time, and I sort of sat down. I was getting ready for work, and I thought, that's the first time I've woke up on a Monday morning. Thought, I can't wait for Saturday to get here.
And
it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And fingers crossed that the players read the script and Don't cock it up.
Hope so. Let's hope not.
Let's have a quick look at our opposition as well, because this is normally the point in the show where I'm talking to an opposition fan. So we're going to do it. It's going to be top heavy on Gillingham, but we will have a quick look at Crawley. In terms of last 6 in the league, Crawley have picked up 7 points from 18. It's exactly the same record as Gills. So that's 2 wins, a single draw and 3 defeats in the last 6 for both clubs. Home and away, not the Australian soap. Gills 5 points from the last 18 at home, which is 2 draws, then it was 3 defeats, and then the win against Hartlepool. Crawley doesn't make great reading. There's 3 draws and 3 defeats. I don't want to jinx it. They've conceded 11, Luke, in their last 6 away games. So they're basically going along at 2 a game conceded. And they are, and this will be where you can blame me on Saturday at 5 o'clock if it goes horribly wrong. Crawley are the only team in the division to have not picked up an away victory in the league so far.
Was it when like Colchester as well on Boxing Day?
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
Yeah, that's that as well. So yeah, the less said of that, the better. But I think they're a different side. Obviously, they've got a new manager, local lad from our way as well. So
Scott Lindsay,
he's going to be probably wanting to prove a point as an ex-Chatham manager as well. They're obviously on a fresh manager bounce. I believe there was a bit of suspicion in why their games got called off over the last 3 or 4 weeks, but we won't allude into too much of that. But yeah, obviously they won their first game last week
beat Salford
under
3-2,
Lindsay.
yeah.
So they're going to have that, as Nick Harris said, that fresh manager bounce. They've got a finisher in Dom Telford. They've released and got rid of a heck of a lot of the players, and I think yesterday they signed 2 keepers, a couple of defenders, and a midfielder. Or a striker.
Yeah, they've done a lot of business late on. So whether it's going to be out of jail, but like you say, they're coming off the back of a decent win against a good Salford side. So that's going to give them some confidence. Dom Telford's got 5 in his last 9.
Yeah, exactly.
In 26 in all competitions, so he's a striker in form. I did like his reaction to the Salford fans last weekend, calling him names. So
at the Carol,
and he repeated the song. It just reminded me when Tom Eves was calling it by Plymouth fans a few years ago. And they've also got Ashley Naisden, who's got 6 in his last 12 as well. So they're going to have 2 threats, 2 real threats in front of goal that we're going to have to be aware of. The positive for Gills is obviously 7 points from the last 9, but we kept 2 clean sheets in that time. But yeah, back to what you said about the last day of the window for them. George Frankham's been released. I'd be all over that. I'm not going to lie.
I would have signed him.
Yeah. Tony Craig's not played since Boxing Day. Still at the club, I believe. Jake Hessenthaler, a former player of ours, hasn't played since Boxing Day. He's gone to Woking on loan, and they then signed somebody from Woking. So it looks like that might have been part of the deal, some sort of sweetener. Don't understand it. For me, Jake Hessenthaler should still be in the Football League.
Yeah, mate, you're right completely. We obviously said when we spoke yesterday that if you'd have offered us Jake Hessenthaler at the beginning of January, we probably would have taken him.
100%, because I'd have said he was better than Sean Williams and Stuart O'Keefe, and he'd have given us more legs. Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting one, because we don't know if the new players that they've signed on deadline are going to play. Be a completely different side to what we played before Christmas.
Certain Tom Nichols started up front for Crawley that night.
Exactly. So
I've heard he's decent.
Scored a few goals in the last couple of games. But yeah, it'll be a completely different side. And again, if they're going to play a completely different way because they're under a different manager. So it's hard to know. Obviously, Neil's going to be doing his own due diligence, but it's going to be hard to know what to expect. Because I say where they are, got completely different sides and a different manager. We don't know what we're going to see.
No, it's all a bit unknown, but like you say, I'm sure Neil would have watched the Salford game back a couple of times at least to get an idea of how they're going to play. Looking back at Arsenal, I did write down, I'm not going to go into it too much, but I did write down, glad we avoided Wagme takeover, because apparently they were the ones that were rumoured to be looking at us before COVID hit. We'll keep our American. Anyway, moving on. Team news for Gills. Obviously, it's Wednesday, so there's not been a press conference, but we know there's likely to be no Ollie Lee. There's definitely no Ben Reeves. Callum Harriott not going to be seen. Whether we sign him again, I'm not sure. Jordan Green out of favour, has fallen out with someone. It looks like has been told he's not playing for us again. I did write down Lewis Walker doubtful, but he's obviously going to be out as well if he's got a knee brace. This is where we get to this bit where we have to talk about players coming in. I was torn between making 1 or 2 changes. I stuck to just 1 change for Saturday compared to last weekend. The man Lapsley has to start for me this week.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going for 2.
which I think might have been my other one if I'd gone with it, which is Connor Masterson for Will Wright, I'd imagine.
Yeah, exactly right. I think Harris couldn't drop Nichols, or he couldn't drop anyone in the side because it's the first time we've won back-to-back games in God knows how long. I think Harris also, this is meant to say in the most positive way possible. He's Lapsley's looking for an excuse for him to start. And I think Jeffries will be the person that drops out.
That was what I'd have said as well. I've gone with Williams, Dieng, Lapsley, and McDonald this week.
Yeah. So obviously he was at fault for the second goal.
The penalty. Yeah, the second one. He should have just hacked it clear or over the halfway line.
But he is 20 years old, and he has been performing at his peak for the last 4 weeks. So
we also have to remember that he's only played under 23s football essentially. Yeah. So he's suddenly then gone and played 20, 25 games in 2 or 3 months. So it's going to catch up with him a little bit. Wasn't a poor performance at Swindon. It was just off compared to, like you say, what his standards have been over the last sort of dozen games or so. So I think we're pretty much along the same line. So Glenn Morris in goal. The fullbacks will be Robin McKenzie and David Tatonda. I think Luke's going to go for Max and Connor. I've gone with Max and Will Wright. I think it's harsh to drop a bloke who's kept 2 clean sheets in 3, and he did score last week as well. But I've got no qualms if Connor Masterson comes into that 11. Midfield 4, I think we've matched up, which is Sean Williams, Timmy Dieng, George Lapsley, and Alex McDonald, and a front pair of Tom Nichols and Oliver Hawkins. Bench, I've written down. This is where it gets tricky again as well, because we've suddenly got attacking options to get on the bench. I can't see Stuart O'Keefe being involved. I've taken another one out that was on the bench last week, and it's probably a bit harsh because he came on and sealed out the game really well at Colchester the week before. I've taken Jay Alexander out of the 18. I've gone Jake Turner on the bench, Connor Masterson, Dom Jeffries is good enough to still be on the bench, Hakiba Delacune and Scott Cashkit for pace, Joe Gabode because we have to have one on there if we're going to name 7, and Aidan O'Brien. So I've left Tristan Abrahams out this week because I think we've got pace on there, and I think it might be a game where Nichols now gets 90 minutes because he's played 70, 75 the first 3. I can't see him wanting to be taken off in this game.
No. The only difference I think that potentially Abrahams will come in for either, I think,
Delacune or Cashkit. That was my 2 that I wasn't sure if he was going to get Abrahams on there. Yeah. So again, we're pretty much along the same lines.
Yeah.
Score prediction before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. I've written mine down, so I'm going to let you go first.
3-1.
Like we've scripted it, Gills. It's like we phone up each other. We've got the same colour on as well.
It's like we speak to each other every day.
Yeah, I know. It's like we don't do any work. I'm just super confident, and it's just so refreshing to be so positive. And I said it's because everyone knows I took the break before Christmas and just concentrated on match day vlogs, and I've mentioned it a couple of times. So I do apologise if I seem to sort of be copy and pasting, but that's what I was doing, and that's why I stopped recording match previews and Monday review shows, because it was getting tedious. It's just great to be able to talk about Gillingham Football Club with a smile on our face again, look forward to going to games, going and speak to people and go, oh yeah, we scored a good goal last weekend. How great was it to be disappointed that we'd only drawn at Swindon? That was the big thing for me. As frustrating as that was, it was great to be disappointed that we'd only drawn at 6th place in the league, because a draw with 6th place in the league 2 months ago would have represented probably our best result of the season.
Yeah. And I think when did you do the poll of how many points do we expect at the beginning of January?
I can have a look. I've got it. It's my pinned tweet, so I can just double check.
I think I put us down having like 7 points.
That was New Year's Day. I said 9. Yeah. So we're 2 points from that. And I genuinely think we can beat Crawley, Grimsby and Rochdale now in the next 4.
Yeah. I would agree. And I will open. I've always said, and as obviously people know who listen to the ME7 podcast, as I'm very, and you yourself who I speak to every day, I'm very critical of Neil Harris. And if we win on Saturday, I will not voice my negative opinion on him for a month, because I think he deserves me to give him a break, because the game was to go 3-1 up. Yeah, I am. We're massively disappointed that we didn't see out and win the game, but we scored 3 goals in 15 minutes, and you know, we've scored 7 goals in 3
23
games,
matches before that. Yeah, exactly. Before the new players came in.
But I was as a fan, I'm a massive believer that even win, lose or draw, I've always stayed to clap the team off the pitch.
Mhm.
There was a couple of instances, especially I left early at Salford, and I gave them a couple of pieces of my mind on a few other games. You know, it's just nice. Like the Hartlepool game, you could sit back and I was having a chat with my mate watching the game, not literally just sitting there biting my nails because we're losing 1-2, 3-0. It's
yeah, I think I said to Boz on the Matchday Live, wouldn't it be lovely to be sit here at 20 minutes to go and be 2-0 up and absolutely cruising? And lo and behold, it happened. So it was great fun to just, like you say, just see a game out comfortably. And I think what we have to remember, and I've said this plenty of times, is Neil Harris deservedly took pelters for a big portion of the season because it was his squad, and we all know that budgets are budgets, and he knew that before he came in. But I think we also have to look at it the other way. He put his career on the line here and his reputation by coming into a club that he knew was basically just sleepwalking into disaster when he took over, 366 days ago. And he's got no excuse now, and he knows that. Neil Harris is an intelligent man, and he's a proven football manager in this league, in the Football League, sorry. So he knows now that he's got to deliver. He's got no excuse now. There's no excuse for budget. There's no excuse that these are not my players. He has to go and get results. And we can only, what's the saying? You're only as good as your last game. Well, his last 3 games, 2 clean sheets, 7 goals, 7 points. We can't moan about anything at the moment.
No.
We know there's going to be bumps in the road, but I think he deserves the rest of the season at the absolute minimum. But I'd love to see him still be in charge next season and have a right crack at it from the beginning of a season.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence about that. But we can talk about that another day. But let's. It would just be nice for us to pull away from the bottom 2 over the next 3 or 4 weeks and just be able to go on this journey. I know this probably sounds really, fairy, but no, it'd be nice to go on a journey for the end of the season, just be able to enjoy going to football. We're safe. There's no chance of us going down. We can give everyone our full support and just watch a project in motion.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally agree.
And like what you said, like if we're safe 5 games from there, let's see Coleman making a debut. Let's see a few of the youngsters get a chance.
Yeah, see Clark, Chambers, Gabodi. It'd be lovely, yeah.
Yeah. So let's hope in the next 3 or 4 weeks, if we get 3 from 3, and be level on points with Colchester, what they're sitting, are they 18th, 17th?
Something like that, yeah.
That'd be the dream. But I can't see us dropping points on Saturday. I really can't. I hope that isn't what they call the commentator's curse. But yeah. Would you take even actually? Let me ask you a question. If we play well, Crawley play well, would you take a draw?
Draw's not a disaster, is it? But then again, it depends what Rochdale and Hartlepool do, because they're the 2 that we've got to overtake at the moment. But I just think, let's just enjoy it for what it is, like you've said again. And it might sound a bit cliched and a bit sort of, what's the word, fantastical or whatever, something like that. I'm not sure that's the right terminology. But when you've had to put up what we've had to put up with for the last 18 months, it's just nice to be sitting here and just looking forward to going to watch our football team and believing in it and hoping in it again. And I think that's probably a nice place to end this tonight, Gills fans. So I'm going to say thanks to Luke, because it's been a real pleasure having you on, making your debut. You are going to have some sort of dual registration, aren't you now, like these young lads of ours have when they do these work experience deals, because you're getting here, there and everywhere at the moment. You can see, like I say, you can see Luke on Reese's German Gills channel doing his predicted 11 every week. You can listen to him on the ME7 podcast, so go and check all of them out. Please don't forget to keep liking and subscribing to this channel. Your support never does go unnoticed. It really is appreciated. Be back Saturday for what is promising to be a really good match day live. I think me and Boz are going to have to shout a little louder than normal to be heard. Such will be the atmosphere in the Rainham end. But enjoy the rest of your week. A couple of days until the weekend. We will see you Saturday inside of Pat Priestfield. But until then, up the Gills.